consciousness in I self that it was always a lonely world, not finding people who might think like me.
Hey man, welcome to the Bob Marley One Love review for Cinema Group.
Yes, I believe in never love and never pure. I Selassie the first in the
I
house,
and
bringing the love.
I,
I and I,
Rastafari.
I and I, Luigi.
Hey, why do we sound like Italians? I take 2 gulps in the morning. I take 2 gulps at night. I take 2 gulps in the afternoon. This movie's just alright. I take 2 gulps in the time of peace and in the time before. I take 2 gulps before I take 2 gulps, and then I take 2 more. Bob Marley, One Love, 2024, American biopic, musical drama by the director Ronaldo Marcus Green, sort of based on the life of reggae singer and songwriter Bob Marley, despite the taglines, the headlines, and the online plot synopsis. This is not about his life, rise to fame, or death from 1981. It's a very different movie, and dare I say, you already need to know quite a bit about the man to know what the fuck is going on in this movie. Having said that, I'm glad it exists, and I think it's a great biopic. Joined here on Cinema Gulp's podcast review is Babak. Hey, man.
Hey, how's it going, Ben?
It's going great. Just saw One Love, feeling the Rastafari. And
feeling it.
A lot of stuff to unpack about this movie. I haven't said much about it because I wanted to wait till we were on it. And glad to have you here because we grew up listening to Bob Marley. I know you're just as big, if not bigger, of a fan.
Oh my God. I mean, honestly, I was just kind of trying to not sing along to the entire movie.
Yeah. You know what? And you texted me like at the end, you were like dancing, and I was like, I almost felt the exact same thing. I just
honestly, I didn't want to be that guy that was like super excited and stuff and into it. But like I couldn't help, like at the end, honestly, like one of my favorite parts was the end because you have the real footage of Bob Marley, and I'll talk more about it, but like I felt like that was the real big payoff. And I felt like I was at a concert the whole time. And, kind of like bobbing my head and, tap my feet in my chair. And finally, at the end of the credits, when most people had left, the lights were on, my wife and I were just feeling it and just, got a little groove on in the theater, just, a couple seconds before we took off. But I just, it was like, I agree with you. It was very limited in the scope of the storytelling. And there's so much, you really got to not bite off more than you can chew. And they just focused on what they focused on, the music. And, try to give you the moments when the songs were just becoming like from a jam session to an actual song, and, really take you to those concerts and stuff. And I mean, I dug all that about it.
Yeah, I was in a theater that was a packed house. There was every cult. You could tell that it was just a smorgasbord of people. And at the end, everyone was like, we stayed, and me and Josh were like bobbing and singing along to the music, but in our chairs. And we could see other people were doing the same thing. Like it was a movie where we didn't want to leave at the end because we wanted to wait till the music was over and the credits. But I think you make a good point because here's the thing. I like the movie. I wouldn't say it's great. I wish it was, but from a filmmaking standpoint, it has a lot to be desired. There's nothing particularly interesting about the way it's shot. The production seems a little standard studio. The pacing and the structure is a bit of a mess, especially in the first half hour. I think it should have actually started when they get to London because the shooting and all that stuff doesn't really pay off at any point later in the story. The saving grace of this film for me is Kingsley Ben Adar, I think, and he's the guy that plays Bob Marley. And then, of course, Lashana Lynch, who plays Rita Marley. Those two are fucking amazing.
Fantastic.
Amazing. Like, I know this movie comes out in February, but I hope it is not forgotten later on during award season because he embodied this guy. Like, because you and I, we've watched documentaries on Bob Marley before, which is probably why they didn't want to do a whole like recap of his life because there's been documentaries
already done.
Yeah, it's been done. but the mannerisms of seeing the real Bob Marley in interviews, we got like, and he does
Oh
like,
yeah,
dude, Kingsley fucking crushed it, in my opinion.
yeah.
Doesn't look exactly, he's a little bit better looking, I guess.
Yeah, and that's exactly my takeaway. I feel like this was a very, Kinsley is a character actor. And honest, like you and I probably have our own Bob Marley impression, and it's probably not half bad. So many people know how he spoke, how he moved. Like that he wasn't a very graceful dancer. He was a jerk. He'd jerk around and like herky jerky style, and like just not even in time with the music.
Felt the
sometimes.
music and the vibes. That's
Felt
it.
the music and the vibes, and like he was a skinny guy. He had prominent cheekbones, sallow cheeks, and Kingsley is a healthy. I'm not saying but the mannerisms sold it. Even though he looked a little healthier than Bob, like,
but his voice, and
oh
his
my God,
mannerisms and just everything about the way he strut and moved his body and the
absolutely
put him in those signature, like those zip up vest things. That's when he really did look like him, until you saw his kind of beautiful bone structure.
Yeah, his handsome face.
He's like a model, but I'm not taking that away.
I have a question. I have a question about the sound. Did they just have him lip sync everything? Because it sounded exactly like the recording. Did they do like some kind of like put the two together, like his voice overlaid?
So he wanted to do some singing, so he sang, and then they overlaid. The technology's so good nowadays, they can merge the two together. Right. So you get a lot of his breathing, especially when he's just singing in front of the campfire and stuff, like, because Josh was like, "I don't believe you, Ben." I go, "Dude, just look it up." Like it's because he's like, I feel like in the concerts they were just playing the tracks. They were, but they were also mixing in Kingsley's voice as well.
Right.
I think they could have done a little bit better of a job of not making it sound so much
exactly like the recordings.
Yeah.
Did they do that when he was talking as well?
No,
that's some kind of AI thing.
No, dude, he just fucking nailed that shit, man.
Okay.
Just acting. Yeah, he just
he
worked it.
He really did. And as long as we're talking about the sound of it, I feel like they really this is the right time today. Is the society culture today is the right time to do this movie properly, this story respectfully. I feel like if this had come out even 10, 20 years ago, they would have just focused on a bunch of people smoking pot, and like that would have been the whole thing. It would have just been
people are smoking pot in every frame of this movie, but it's not.
They are, but that's exactly it's background. It's never, there's only one like part where like he gets arrested for having weed in London. I'm sure that really happened, but like that wasn't the story. It was really like just his message, and the focus of like how the songs were made, and just, it was really about the music.
I love that scene in London because I want to say they were seeing the Clash in that scene. It sounded like the Clash.
I know, and I was wondering if it was, but so, they really did it in a tasteful way, in a respectful way. Like you could, honestly, you could tear anybody down. And like he was just treated with, this is a person who was really into the message, and he was really a genuine people person. Yeah. And that's what the focus was on. And even though we all got our flaws, and I'm sure he had his as well,
But yeah, well, that's where I think the message he's speaking in the movie from the dialogue versus the script itself, like showing his actions, I have a little bit of an issue with, because we all know, growing up with him, reading stuff about him, reading books, he was a womanizer. There's no question. There's a PG-13 movie, so they didn't focus on that, but the editing was not great in this movie, because it keeps, every once in a while you'll see like a woman come to his door, and I guess and again I go back to if you don't know anything about Bob Marley, you are kind of lost in this movie. It's mostly made for people that are huge fans of his already, because you're not going to learn much about his motivations. If you're learning about him for the first time, this movie's not for you. Go see Bob, which is a documentary that came out a few years back, which is amazing. That's his entire life. This was like this little pocket. I love it that it does that, because I like biopics that do just focus on a certain place in time. But I wish the movie was more just about the recording of Exodus, because it kind of is. But it also confused me, because I thought like Jamaica wanted him to leave for a little bit when all that heat was happening. But it seems the movie makes it seem like he's kind of a coward. Like he left because because of what was happening, and then he's just kind of living comfortably in London for a while, and he doesn't go back till later. I always thought they kind of asked him to leave, but
I don't know. I really okay. I wanted to say something about the patois, but we can come back to that later. But my biggest question about this movie is I thought it was supposed to be about the One Love concert in Jamaica where he
that's
got
what
the
I thought
two
it was supposed to
rival
be about too.
the two rival politicians to hold hands and all that, and try to make peace.
That's just at the very end, and they don't even show it.
But was that moment at the One Love like after the assassination attempt when he went to the concert anyway and he showed his bullet wounds? Is that when he pulled the two politicians on stage?
No, I think it was after that. It was when he came back to Jamaica and people.
Okay. So they did do it in the actual chronology.
Yeah, but
for some reason always
movie. Yeah.
No, they didn't show it in the movie, and I for some reason always thought that when he was shot and he went on stage, that's when he did that uniting moment. But it was when he came back from being abroad and had the big return concert. That's when he did it. Okay. For me, the payoff of the movie, because I was waiting for that moment the whole time. I was waiting for that moment because I thought it was going to be at the very beginning. I was like, wow, they're jumping into this right away.
Yeah, well, they set it up that way. That's why the first 25, 30 minutes of this movie is a kind of a jumbled mess because you don't know what the fuck is going on,
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that. And I was really afraid that they were just going to nerf it and not even go over the payoff moment. And then when the credits started, I was like, they nerfed it. And then there was the payoff where it's the real footage of the actual moment, the real people. Like, they're not like, oh, we're going to try to recreate it and overly dramatize it and stuff. They're like, no, we're going to show you the real moment. And that for me was just like one of the best parts of the movie because
that was great. Yeah, that was something that Josh didn't know about that. So when he saw that footage, he was like, he goes, wait, so the two guys are white guys? I'm like, yeah, dude, don't
of course,
like, Jamaica
surprise.
is like a colony of fucking like
Britain.
Yeah.
Still run it.
When you go there, white guys own everything, and they can. But so he learned that. But
yeah. So I was really so happy. So I'm gonna.
Yeah, no, I had a huge smile on my face. So I've heard how good this movie's doing. On opening night, which was Valentine's Day, it made $14 million. It was projected to do that for a 5-day weekend, and it's already destroyed it. So I think you're right. I think people do want to see this movie. I think it's going to blow its expectations out of the water, and it deserves to. When I talk about the filmmaking stuff as not being great, I don't mean I wish, I'm so glad this movie was made. I will watch it again. I think it could have been more interesting. But again, like, watching a movie about Bob Marley, listening to reggae, seeing the Wailers, it was amazing. I was happy the entire time, and God, Lashana Lynch as the unsung hero of Rita, she was so great.
Yeah.
You learn a lot more. One thing you do learn about in his life was that they were more partners than anything.
Right.
Yeah. Like they weren't really lovers. They loved each other, but
but not like in a romantic.
Great do you feel when he's like, "Hey, Ziggy, get your head out of the window"? And you're like, "It's Ziggy Marley.
It's little Ziggy.
It's little Ziggy."
When we were in high school, Ziggy Marley played over in Laguna Beach, and like for my high school community service, I volunteered with Surf Riders to go and like help out with the concert. Were you there for that?
No, but I know
I did that with someone. I don't remember who I did that with, but so like basically I was like supposed to like be cleaning things and helping out. So when Ziggy was on stage, I was like right to the side. I was like stage right, just in the aisle. And I thought I was looking and hearing Bob Marley. He was playing some Bob songs. And I was like, dude, I'm seeing Bob, is what I thought. All the Ziggy and, all the other little Marleys, all just like, daddy, like they were someone's kid, they just grew up with pops and like they're still living off of the legacy. It's crazy.
The thing about Ziggy was he was the only son out of all
with
of
Rita, right?
Stuck with, and well, no, I think there was another one too.
Okay.
But he was the only one that stuck with the roots reggae. So he always, to me, sounded the most like Bob. A lot of people say Stephen Marley does. I go, well, maybe his voice does, but he plays a different kind of reggae. So I don't hear the Bob the way I do when Ziggy, because Ziggy became famous in the 80s,
Yeah,
you know, like at a young age, like not long after his dad died, he was already
pretty much.
the
Yeah.
melody makers, you know. So
Mhm.
I always liked Ziggy Marley's music the best out of the Sons. One thing I'll say is like they don't make a lot of references to a lot of the people he hung out with.
Yeah.
For instance, there's a character in this movie that is cast on IMDb as Peter Tosh, but you don't know
Okay,
who
in
it
the
is because
flashback, right?
yeah, but they never show or even mention Peter Tosh.
It's just that one time when him and Rita are arguing
Yeah.
in the alley, and I love it. Peter and Bonnie, put in work.
Oh, dude, there were so many times
Yeah,
Josh goes, "I wish there was subtitles on this." I'm like, I get what you're saying, but I kind of, I
I
understand.
love it, dude. I love it.
I love it.
And so the thing I want to say before is that this is a movie for people who already know Bob and know reggae
Yes,
and all that.
100%, yeah.
Because when they're speaking like in real life in Jamaica, as you know, they're not speaking English. They're speaking patois to each other, which is a mixture. It has English in it, but it's a mixture of multiple languages. And so
Yes.
when they speak to each other, they're unintelligible to us because we just simply don't speak patois. So when they speak to us, they'll speak English, but with that thick, heavy Jamaican accent.
Yeah.
And that's the voice that they used for all the internal conversations, just so like at least we can understand what the fuck they were saying. You know what I mean?
Well, that was the thing. Like Bob Marley's original interviews used to be so confusing because he would do both of those and it would come in and out in the middle of talking, you know. And I like there's one little line they give these, it's only flashback scenes they show you. And one of my favorite scenes of the movie is when they go up to the recording studio and they just play this boring song as kids, and then the guy walks out and they play this amazing song, and I was like, why didn't you start with that?
Yeah, right.
That scene had goosebumps. I had goosebumps coming up, you know.
I felt
but, you know, those
that guy was like,
fuck. Those flashback scenes are just basically him meeting Rita, but it should have been him meeting all his childhood friends who became the Whalers, but they don't really. The Whalers are kind of they're always background. There. They get a lot of screen time, but you don't know who is
who.
What. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. I get it.
And I honestly, I feel like if they had really told the bigger story of the band with Peter and Bunny and them like taking off and stuff, you know, this would have had to been like a much. Really, it's not even part of it, you know. And they just mentioned that one time, you know, but like they showed a couple flashbacks, but like. They didn't ever really explore that because these are such big, you know, Peter Tosh, such a big personality. Everyone knows so many things about him.
I would love to see a biopic on him, dude. Like,
that'd be awesome,
would actually
right?
Probably be more interesting. Not as inspiring, but more interesting. You know?
It could be, you know, and so they just didn't really explore a lot. Like I don't even know who most of the people were.
Well, you know, earlier in the year, I don't know if you saw it. I saw a movie called Ferrari.
Okay, yeah, the Enzo Ferrari story.
Yeah, that movie was similar to this, where it just took a chunk of his life and decided to tell you this, like way later in his life, not how he got involved in cars. It doesn't tell you. It really does start the movie.
It's not an origin story.
No, so you're supposed to know who he is, and it just shows this pocket of his life. And when that movie was done, my review of it was like, what was the point of this? I don't understand what the point of this was. I don't feel that way about One Love. I do get the point, but I do wish there was just more to let non-fans in a little bit, and just because you see these huge and I'm guessing it was CGI because this movie is low budget, but
the concerts,
and he did have that many people in his concerts, and people are amazed to this day, like how, but you don't know why. You don't know why. I mean, because he's already famous when the movie starts, you know? So you get, I mean, I love all the stuff with Exodus. I fucking love that stuff. And I love the redemption songs where they're like, when'd you write that? And he's like, my whole life. And it's so great. So great. And I love that. Yeah, I love that record. I've got so many Bob Marley vinyls, and I do not have an Exodus. I thought I did.
Oh, okay.
I thought I did, but I don't. But
it's great.
I got Rita Marley's best one, but I love how Rita, when they're fighting, that argument is so great because it's and that's another thing. It kind of comes out of left field because there wasn't much buildup to that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Like, was she's talking to some guy that
but I
wants her to
love
go
how she
solo and she
drops
turned
like
him
I
down?
could have been I could have been a recording artist. I can't I stayed for you. I stayed for the
Yeah.
mess. You know, I'm sorry. I'll stop doing that. But she tells him and she tells us that she could have been huge. And obviously after he passed, she had a lot of really big records. Some of which I do have, and there's some that but but yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I really did dig that they if there was one relationship they explored, it was theirs. And it was kind of like the number one relationship was between Bob and the music. And then I would say the relationship between Bob and Rita, they kind of got into a little bit, as well as there was other plot lines, but it was really nice to see her fleshed out. Like in the flashbacks, to see her as that like
yeah.
the young beautiful woman who brings him into Rastafarianism.
Yeah,
And
the movie
starts
didn't just
teaching
treat her
him.
like a side character.
Yeah.
She was almost as big of a part as he was. Yeah.
It was constantly on the road, in the studio. Hardly see each other for a good relationship, but then we had fun while we were on the road or while we were in the studio.
And it was really cool. They did here and there explain a couple things to people. Like, for example, like, when I was there with my wife, she was like, I don't understand a thing they're saying. Like, she wanted the subtitles, but like, but they did break it down, like where Rita is explaining to Bob about Rastafarianism, just explaining the terminology I and I, and
Yeah. Oh, I
stuff
like that
that.
scene where they actually express what I and I is, and they explain what Rastafari is, and a
Mhm.
lot of the religion. That guy with the dreads that
Yeah, with that one massive
icons
thread.
on his fucking neck, dude.
Dude, he reminded me of that creature in Jabba the Hutt. It's like
Yeah.
the chick with they got
fucking
their
Bit
head.
Fortuna. Bit
Yeah,
Fortuna.
they wrap their head
Yeah.
around their
You
throat.
wanna walk out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, dude, you went to Jamaica when we were in high school, and like
Yeah.
you got really deep into. I remember you showing photos of you hanging out with some old guy in like a shack or whatever, and he looked like
Yeah.
they
Brother
reminded me of
Wolf.
that guy.
That
Yeah,
dude's name was Brother Wolf. Yeah, dude. He's there's when Jamaica, it's it's a beautiful place. You got to stay out of the cities. They're just I went to Trenchtown with my family. We went to Bob Marley's home, one of his homes, which is a museum,
the
and we
childhood
got
home.
out. I
And
don't recall
up
which
in
one exactly
the
it
Blue
was.
Mountains, where you have to drive up to the mountains.
Not the one up in the Blue Mountains,
Okay,
in
'cause I went to
Trenchtown.
that one.
Yeah. Yeah. But so like, dude, we pulled into Trenchtown for just a half a second. It was literally just tumbleweeds blowing down the street, just shacks everywhere. Like we felt unsafe, and then went straight into the Bob Marley Museum, checked it all out, and went right back out to we were staying at someone's house, and went right back over there. But stay out of the cities. But outside the cities, it's most of the island is just beautiful. The beaches, the river, Ocho Rios, and all of the shorelines.
Ocho
And you get
Rios
up a
is where I stayed. Yeah, they wouldn't let us go to Town when I was there.
Dude, it's too dangerous, man. It's no joke.
No,
out
I mean
there.
they literally were like, yeah, tourists can't go there right now. It's like it's a war zone. And I went there in 2013. I don't know the last.
I believe it. Yeah, dude. But like going up the Blue Mountain, and there's just a farmer on the side. There's farmers on the side of the mountain. It was funny. We had this driver, and he picked up this dude that he knew because everyone knows each other. And so it was like my family in a private van with the driver, and like he let some guy on. And this guy, everywhere we're pulling up, like up the Blue Mountain, everyone has to come out to see the van, and he's hanging out. And he's just telling everyone, I'm on the run, the law's after me, like this and that. I'm like, dude, why are you telling every single person you come across that you're on the run, like from the
How do you
law?
know there's not a police officer in the
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it was a trip. But like one thing that I noticed everyone, the little thumbs up, where they give you the thumbs up and they push it forward, the respect. You saw that a little bit in the movie, which was kind of cool. And, just the feel for the place and the culture. Obviously, we went over the patois, but just seeing the red stripe beers, just in the background, people just drinking the red stripe.
The sessions in the recording studio, it's all foggy because there's so much weed.
Yeah.
Those were some of my favorite scenes. But God, I gotta say, man, we're sitting here talking about our experiences in Jamaica. The movie barely takes place there. And I was so kind of bummed about that. Like Exodus, I get it. He recorded it and he wrote it when he was in Europe, but I don't know. I just feel like there should have been more. I don't know. I think, like I said, the movie should have started when he got to London, and then, you could, I mean, you don't need to show the assassination attempt because it doesn't really matter in the movie that much.
Well, you could do that as part of the flashback.
Yeah,
like
show it
they
as
have the whole flashback scene. Maybe started in London, but I guess the assassination thing, that is kind of what made him.
I guess it's the
leave.
inciting incident of the movie, but
Yeah,
but it just comes abruptly, and then I don't know. I just felt like the filmmakers didn't quite know what to say, and then the editor was just not very good. But performances, I mean,
oh my goodness,
they just
spot
made
on.
the movie so fucking good.
Actually, yeah, for real, definitely. I mean, I don't personally think that there were too many flaws, execution wise. I totally get what you're saying about the storytelling. But I really feel like the character acting really drove the whole thing. But the sound as well, it was just so great.
It was
to be at a Bob concert the whole time, and just hear all
and
that.
And they really, one thing I will say as a positive of the filmmaking is they really let the performances breathe, and I love that they let songs. When he gets on stage, a lot of these biopics, they'll be like, "Oh, we're gonna start singing a song," so that the movie going audience knows the song, and then it's going to fade out to another time. They let him sing the songs from beginning to end in a concert, and I was like, you know what? I could see a normal person going like, "Why are we sitting on this for so long?" I was so happy. I was almost like, let's just have the movie be him in a concert.
Yeah, just make it a concert film.
Yeah,
I even heard a Bob Marley song that I'd never heard before.
Me too. And I don't know which one it was, but I
don't even know the name of it. It was probably the same one.
Yeah,
Really?
I think I heard one or two that I was like, wow, I don't.
Yeah,
I've
it was
probably
just
heard
him
it
and an
before,
acoustic guitar and just doing a little jam session on his own or something.
I've probably heard it before, but it's not in my memory.
Not registering.
My memory bank of Bob Marley songs. Yeah.
Well, didn't you? I think you were the one who told me that like basically every one of his albums that we know, like Exodus, Uprising, all those things, each one of those is essentially a best of album, because in Jamaica he released everything that he ever did. And just really the best things were then made for international release on the albums that we know. Was that you who was telling me that? Or
I did. We did have that conversation before, but I was talking more like I have a couple, like, if you notice, so many of his albums have like the same song on them more than once, so like Rastaman Vibrations, that's like a best of. And then obviously everybody knows Legend is a best of because he was
exactly
dead.
Yeah, that's officially a best of, but that's like the best of the best.
But
what you got there?
Survival.
Okay, nice.
I actually got this in Jamaica.
Love it.
I think that's an actual album. Obviously we know from the movie Exodus is an actual album, but like Rasta Revolution is another one of his, like, they're just redux or whatever you call them, So a lot of the albums we grew up or whatever you call it, like a
redux.
Yeah. So a lot of the albums that we grew up with were not like legitimate albums, but I think Rastaman Vibrations actually was. But obviously we know Exodus was, but a
lot of compilations.
That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. And that's fine, but because they were making fucking shit tons of money off of him after he died. What do you think? What do you think about his okay, so he had a manager who was the one that took 7 bullets for him and ended up taking money on the side.
Right. Yeah.
But the white guy was his publicist. Who was that? Or he was the record executive, right?
Yeah. I
about him, because I was kind of conflicted at one point so Bob Marley gets foot cancer, which, if you guys don't know, passed away from because he refused to cut off
to do anything. Yeah.
But there's a point where the record executive is like, you have to go see a doctor. It's for your health. And you're like, wow, this guy's a good guy. And then he goes, and if it heals in time, we can be on tour. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, well, wait a second. But he does seem like a genuine dude, though, but he never gets another really moment to explain that,
that person, Chris Blackwell, I think that's
his name.
I believe so. Yeah. He's the record producer. And I don't know if it was him who I saw speak one time at one of these Bob Marley fests way back in the day. Like there's like a convention of like people who love Bob, and they're like workshops and speakers and stuff. And so like I was there sitting in the front row or whatever one year, and this old white dude was talking about all the stuff that he did with Bob back in the day, and I think it was that actual guy. I'm not sure, but he's still alive, and that dude probably had to approve of anything in the movie that had to do with him. And everyone
he was young back then, so
he was young back then, yeah. But he was presented. Everyone was pretty much presented in a very sympathetic light, except for the one manager. What was his name again? The one who took the balls and then took the money.
I can't remember his name, but even him, it's like he does have a point. He got shot for this.
Yeah.
Let him take some money on the side. Jesus. When he's like, man, you're late because you're shopping at the Gucci store. It's like, well,
yeah, exactly.
Let him, dude. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, I think the point that Bob was trying to make there was that not Africa. This is not where we're taking money. We're going to build, we're going to give. And for them, it was like, this is the purpose. Like, we'll make the money in Europe, we'll make the money in, America, but then we're going to spend it in Africa, build up some, for the people and stuff. That's just kind of the spirit.
That's where you, as a successful artist, run into problems when you have labels that also, it's not all about you. Yeah. Everyone is working to make a paycheck. Mm-hmm. And when you have this thing where you want to go to Africa, and he made a point, he's like, we'll build it. Like, he's like, there's nothing there. He's like, we'll build it.
Yeah.
They all, even the one little squirrely white guy that's like, I don't understand this album cover. We can barely see your name. It's so boring. He has a point.
Michael Gandolfini.
Is that who it was?
That's Michael Gandolfini. Yeah, that's the son of James, right?
No, but he has a great point. Obviously,
he does have a great point. Yeah, it's not the best looking album cover.
No, but in the end, it's like, it paid off.
It's iconic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking iconic. Yeah. I don't know. I wish there was maybe just a few more recording sessions, and I do love that we find out the origins of Exodus, that he just heard them sing. They heard them playing that from a movie.
From a movie called Exodus. That's awesome.
That's news to me. That was
I had no idea.
Really, that's a nugget that I really liked.
Yeah, they had all kinds of great little, just you're fly on the wall. They're just kind of jamming. They're just doing their thing. Yeah. Like the campfire in the yard in Jamaica, and all the other just like intimate moments and stuff. It really felt like it was just a cozy little, it just like felt good the whole time, even when they were arguing and stuff here and there. It was just like, wow, what a good guy. Like, I don't know how many movies I've seen these days where a girl hitting a guy getting a fight, the girl hits the guy hits the girl, and I'm just like, is that a thing now? You know what I mean? And so it was nice, like that. He just took it, and he stayed there, and he kept trying to talk to her,
Yeah.
And like, he did get violent that one time when he thought that his manager was stealing, taking too much money from the Africa. But
yeah.
For the most part, like, did that moment where one of the guys who shot him came back to ask his forgiveness, is that real?
Yes. Wow. They talk about that on the tour when you go to his childhood home, because that's the only scene in the movie, I think, where they bring up that moment again, pretty much. Well, except for a couple of scenes. Yeah, no, I heard that guy did do that, because when you go to his childhood home, they have a mausoleum, and you can.
Is that where he's buried?
No, I don't think it's where he's buried, but they have a mausoleum with, it's kind of more like an altar.
It's like a tribute.
Yeah, it's like a tribute thing, and you can light. You can light a candle and you walk around it and say a prayer and put it on there for Bob Marley when you go.
Nice.
And they tell you that story about how the guy that shot him came to apologize, and he basically was like, you don't need to apologize to me. And that's one of the things that Bob Marley, it's just like, he was so extraordinary.
Yeah, such a great guy,
I don't know if that scene went down exactly how it went, but I loved that scene. And I remember Josh going, is that his manager apologizing? I go, no, that's the guy who shot him. That's the guy who shot him. Yeah,
and they did a great job of, when he was pulling the trigger, the look on his face was already one of like remorse.
Yeah, he was probably desperate for money or some shit.
He is probably But then, like, were those guys bodyguards? Were they already in the compound? Or did they sneak in?
They snuck in. Yeah,
they snuck in.
A quick scene where they're running in the back when Rita's getting in her car.
Right,
dude. The funniest scene in the movie, and I don't know. I guess this is true. When Rita gets shot in the head and then she's in the hospital, they go, dreadlock, stop the bullet.
What a dreadlock. I was like, is it one of those little rings they put on the locks or something? Like how?
Yeah, I'm like, that is a fucking strong dread, man.
That is a strong ass dread. Yeah. Well, Kevlar is cloth, so
Dude,
I guess you get
stopping a bullet, bro.
That's insane, dude. But I loved the line that Bob gave. When the guy was like, "I'm sorry, for whatever, forgive me," and he just pointed at his heart and said, "Only you can forgive. Like only you can redeem yourself."
Because I have no room for vengeance. Only God.
Just such a. I mean, I wish I could be more of that.
I was just about to say, I wish I could be like Bob. I wish I did. I wish I didn't sulk over things and
I know, right? And he died when he was 36, dude.
36,
I'm 46.
dude.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
Ziggy is already like 55 or something like that now. Older than that. Yeah, it's crazy.
It was
it's the cause of his own death. He could have done something about it. He loved doing stuff for people, so I'm not exactly sure why he didn't want to continue doing that. The movie doesn't go into that at all,
Yeah, was it some sort of like religious thing where he's like
no, I don't think so.
Like
I don't think
Jehovah's Witness type thing where they're like, oh, if God wants me, God can take me,
I just, the way he's always been presented to us in life, he doesn't seem like somebody that would just quit like that, but who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know, but it was just a shame, just take the toe off. You get a prosthetic toe, who cares?
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, he did. Like, it's so different than like, oh, he died of a drug overdose, or he got he got vaccinated. It's just like, no, he just had a fucked up toe and just let it rot.
Just let it kill him, Yeah. But every time, like they had him playing soccer from the very beginning, and every time they did, I kind of cringed a little bit.
Yeah. And then they do show. I love the moment where he does.
They show the moment.
Yeah.
Where the guy's like, hey, I'm sorry, I stepped on your foot. He's like, all right, whatever, who cares?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I love it when the doctor's talking, when he's talking to someone, he's like, I'm not getting cancer from the guy stepping on my foot, and they're like, no, that's just a symptom.
Well, the movie does like clear up the rumor. People were like, "Oh, he got cancer from playing soccer," and it's
not like playing soccer.
No, but that was a rumor, and the movie cleared that up in one line where it's like,
"Oh, okay."
Like, well, the reason it's not healing is because
of the cancer.
Because it's cancer.
Yeah.
Like, he's getting cancer the more he hits the ball with his foot. That was an actual rumor, dude. Babak, in retrospect, after just watching the movie last night and talking with you about it today, I think I do respect it a little bit more because just talking about it makes me happy. The fact that we're talking about a Bob Marley biopic makes me happy. I think more people like him need to be recognized, especially in this climate that we live in today. Everyone seems to be so on edge and mad and divided and stuff like that. And that's not something that he would want. He never did see color. The movie does show that pretty subtly. He just was not... He was not interested in stuff like that. He was just interested in unity. Even though he's Rastafarian, he, loved all cultures. You could tell he always did. Very respectful dude in real life. Brilliant musician, brilliant songwriter, a human being that more of us should strive to be like. And I think that Kingsley just absolutely knocked it out of the park. And I already am campaigning for him to be nominated for awards later on in the year, if anybody cares about that stuff. But he needs recognition because he embodied he embodied Bob Marley so well. And I think that's his performance is a big contributing factor of why I was so happy watching this movie, because I felt like I was watching Bob Marley. So I do really, really, really like this movie.
And, just to pick up on what you were saying about, his views on race, I mean, he was biracial. I mean, even though he was...
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, even though he was not raised by his dad, and something that I did think was interesting about the movie was sort of almost looking at that non-relationship with his father. And when they keep showing him in that as a child...
Cornfields lighting on fire and stuff.
Exactly. And at first... The guy is wearing like that colonial uniform, and you're thinking, okay, this is his dad, because that's how his dad was dressed when his dad walked out on him, for the last time and said, he's not my son. I mean, like, wow. But then after, and they repeated showing that scene until finally there's the reveal of the face, and it's
Yeah.
Emperor Haile Selassie, and he picks him up and puts him on his horse, and the fire dies down. And I just love that metaphor there of like he didn't have a dad, you know?
Yeah.
And so like maybe in some ways the emperor was his sort of father figure where he could just say, okay, here's someone who I can believe in, someone who can show me the right way, you know, whereas it seemed like the movie made his dad look like a scumbag, you know, like, which I'm sure he kind
Well,
of
he's only got one scene where he's like, "Hey, ain't my kid" or whatever, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh wow," but yeah,
like what, you know? But so it was really interesting because, you know, he was biracial. He did have contact with other, even though he wasn't, you know, bicultural necessarily. But yeah, you know, just being open to everybody, and I agree with you. That is a really important message for today with, you know, America, especially. Like, you know, imagine what was going on in Jamaica politically, but on an American scale, that would be on. I mean, that would just be it. It couldn't. We just can't have that, you know. So to listen to his message and I was interested to know what. I know this is supposed to be our final wrap up, but you said that it made as much money in the first day as they predicted it would make in the week. This was not a big budget movie. Do you know how much it cost?
I'm going to find out right now.
Because I mean, if they can make a profit,
I
on
think it
this,
costs 30 million, but
wow, okay,
it might be more. Hang on.
okay, yeah,
That's
know, so-
that's excluding marketing and stuff.
Right,
they
yeah.
released that stuff.
once you go all in, you know, I don't know. I mean, 50 million, 60, 70 million, they should be
Well,
able to make a profit on that.
Well, dude, oh my god.
Yeah.
14, dude, there's like a fucking Sony Spider-Verse movie that's out and it crushed that. Like
Yeah,
this Bob
yeah.
Marley biopic crushed that.
Yeah, I heard bad things about that Spider movie.
Well,
but,
yeah, I mean, hey, okay. Okay, so right now it doesn't look like the budget is out, but my guess is 30 to 50 million.
okay.
So it's going to make a profit after this weekend.
Yeah. So I really hope that they do, because then you're going to see more stories like this.
I want to see a Peter Tosh. I know
I-
people don't know him as well, but my God, his life was insane. So.
Yeah, that would be such an incredible thing. I also want to throw out a little plug for another movie like this that I've mentioned before, Chevalier. It's a real story about a real person who happened to be African French. And, you know, this is what I want. I don't want the latest Disney where Little Mermaid is black. You're still telling a Dutch story, and it just basically has blackface on it.
And it doesn't work because of that. Yeah.
and that's not inclusion. You're still not telling diverse stories.
Thank you. I agree.
But this is a real story about a real person who was African, you know, American, Jamaica, whatever. And you know, and it's I wouldn't be surprised if many of the people behind the camera are also, you know, of color. And so this is the type of project that I like seeing. The same thing with Chevalier. Everyone behind the camera and in front of the camera is all included, you know, and so this is where I want the audience to go. This is where I want the movies to go. Something that's just more authentic. You don't have to tell the same old story in blackface. You can make up new stories about people who are black.
Thank you so much, man, because there's so many stories to tell. Race swapping somebody is what they call pandering. It's almost as racist as anything could be. I want, you know what I want to see? I want to see a well-written, low-budget indie film about Marcus Garvey. Where's that?
Ooh, yeah, I want that. That would be huge. And honestly, today the audience is ready for it.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, because you already have your Malcolm X movie. You already have your Dr. King. Dude, there needs. I mean, if this movie ends up just crushing and people are loving it and singing the songs the way they did when the Bohemian Rhapsody movie came out, and all these like teenagers started just loving Queen. I remember being at a stoplight and looking at this car next to me full of teenage girls singing all these like they were singing Queen songs and dancing in the car. I'm like, wow, like if this movie do that, where all these people, all these kids pick up reggae and roots reggae, like old stuff, and it becomes a big, dude, I'm almost like
getting choked up, man.
No, I'm not choked up. Like my heart just skipped a beat, because like if a good biopic can get people back into roots reggae instead of like this nonsense that they do now to try to keep it alive, oh, I will be so fucking happy. And then you can have a whole group of these things like Garvey and fucking Tosh. Make a Jimmy Cliff movie. Fuck.
Yeah, why not?
Oh my God.
You know what? Maybe make a remake of The Harder They Come.
Make a remake of the Rockers.
But
I like.
I really wanted to go over those things, right there. But basically, like, yeah, overall, this is the right direction. I want to see more stories about real people, that are diverse and made by a diverse, crew. And I want it to do well. It doesn't have to cost a lot, and that's the best thing. Like I remember, Peele from Key and Peele. And I think it was him who became the writer, and he wrote all these horror movies. And someone was saying to him, maybe it was Key or Peele, I don't remember. I think it was Peele. But someone said to him, like, make your pitch for why we want to have a black horror movie. And he goes, it costs less. We'll work for cheaper. We're going to have a better story, and you're going to make more money on it.
That was Peele.
That was okay. Yeah, that was Peele. Yeah. And so I was just like, dude, yeah, this is the place for it. This is the time for it. Like the audience is there. Put the people to work. Let them make this stuff. And let
it speak for itself. Don't put messaging in a movie. Tell a story first.
Yeah.
And like this movie was not a movie about. It wasn't a movie about anything except for Bob Marley, and I appreciate that. It didn't go anywhere except for where it was supposed to go. The focus was on him. It stayed on him. And that's the way it should be,
Yeah. So, I love the biopics, and I love the concert movies. And this was the best of both, and it didn't feel like a low budget movie to me. I felt like it was in a real world.
I don't think it was low budget. I think it's what they call mid.
Mid budget. Yeah, mid budget. But it felt like it was, we're in a real world where there's thousands, millions of people living in it. And you're just following this one group around. And so it felt like a fleshed out real place. And I felt like I was actually watching people, like real people. And it just felt really real and authentic, and they're well executed, in that way. You can maybe tell the story a little bit better, chronology, time-wise, stuff like that. I think you made a good point of this was an editor's film where like the editor has to save it, in some ways. But I think it did well. And I was so happy the whole time. I even like when he started singing War, I was dude, I was like, oh man,
That's the one I was talking about where I said they let it just play.
Yeah.
They just let him sing the whole song on camera, and it didn't stop. Because I love that song. I had
goosebumps. I was like getting emotional, dude. I was like, this is amazing. And that song, especially if you want to get political, a speech that Haile Selassie gave at the UN about all the colonial wars in Africa at the time. And then he put it to music, and it works, like talk about a message, Yeah. So, I mean, I had moments where I was just like really like getting just goosebumps and tingling and stuff, not just there, and it was from the music, and so I think it was, very well executed in that sense. Like my wife didn't understand half the things that people were saying, but she was still dancing along and, feeling the vibes and stuff. So I think that it stayed authentic. It stayed true. They didn't spoon feed you stuff, and like
they definitely didn't spoon feed you anything. You had to play catch up.
Absolutely. And so I like that it treats the audience as a mature audience that can like go and figure things out, without explaining everything through my least favorite thing. I'm going to explain everything, the plot and all character development through conversation, through dialogue. I'm just like, come on, just write a scene, like, no, I'm going to explain everything through dialogue. I'm like, no. And so they didn't do that. And
no, they didn't. Yeah.
So it did feel like, mature. It wasn't, kind of, they didn't nerf it. They didn't mess it up. And I was really hoping they wouldn't mess it up.
They definitely didn't mess it up. Like I said, Babak, my only complaints are some filmmaking aspects. Nothing about like I mean, for the most part, this is my favorite movie so far of the year, even though the year just started. but no, I mean, my biggest, now that I think about it, my biggest problem with this movie is you hear all these great Bob Marley songs, but my favorite song was not in there, and that happens. My favorite song is Rastaman Chants.
Yeah, there you go.
And they didn't do Rastaman Chant, and that would have been epic. But again, you would have to show more Peter Tosh because he's kind of the backup vocalist to that song.
Yeah, I think that they just really maybe only got the rights to certain people, and
there's a guy credited as Peter Tosh. I just don't think they ever say, "Hey, Peter."
Yeah, they never say Peter. Yeah,
I love it. One of the things I did learn about this is I didn't know they called him was it Slick? No, not Slick.
They were calling him Sire or Captain.
No,
Skipper.
Yeah, they call him
Yeah,
Skipper. Yeah, I don't remember ever reading about that or seeing that in the docs, so that was kind of cool. That was kind of cool.
And they really did cast the other band members really well. As soon as
Yeah.
we like the next day we watched he played a concert in Santa Barbara in like 79.
Oh,
And
did you show Lee some like concerts and shit?
yeah, because she was fiending it. She was like, I want to see the real concerts. I want to hear the like the actual, stuff. And like she was digging it. So we're watching these concerts, and it looked like, except for the actor who, Kingsley looked obviously not Bob Marley, but everybody else looked like everyone else. Like I felt like I was just watching the movie still when I was watching this, concert. And I do love when they take, in any movie, when they take the historical record, they take the original photos, they take the original videos and films, they take the original speeches, and then they just act it out and recreate it. And I really feel like, for example, when his the car was being driven through Jamaica, led by the two gang leaders who are protecting his security, and everyone just jumps up and runs around him. I swear to God, I've seen the actual documentary footage of that stuff.
Yeah, we used to watch documentaries on VHS, if you remember back in high school and shit.
Yeah, and so like they went back to the source material and talk about recreating it, not even just the songs. And it was a little like, I wish that maybe that they had done the singing just a little different from the recorded version, but
I agree.
Whatever, like better to nail it than.
Well, no, they put Kingsley's voice in there. He didn't want to just lip sync it, so he is singing. He's just it's mixed.
Yeah, it's totally mixed. Yeah, but it totally sounded like it was like,
It did.
Yeah, but I at the same time I do love that they're like going back to the source materials and just recreating it for you in a very believable way, but they didn't do that with the big moment where he united the two leaders. They showed you the real person, the real people, and so I really like that. It felt like a big tribute, to the guy, and I was very satisfied with it. I'll be recommending it to people, and I hope that there's more movies like this made very soon.
Are you satisfied with the life you live? Yeah, one thing we didn't mention, just real quick before we wrap up, is the guitar player, the guy they brought in, the electric guitar player.
Yeah,
who looked like the older version of Steve Urkel. That guy brought so much to the band for that album, and it's cool that they included him in that. Like when they brought that guy that
at the very beginning,
blues. Yeah. He was like someone that worked with like Muddy Waters and shit. It's like he brought a new sound to it, and like immediately they were like, yeah, man, we can use this. Like I forgot to mention that guy because that was I'm glad that the movie like took a pause and like brought that guy into the story, because it showed you that
about someone else.
Yeah, it showed you that the filmmakers cared a lot about showing us the music. And one thing missing from the NWA movie, which I did really, really like, was I wanted to see more of how they created their music, and this movie does that pretty well. I'll say that.
Really does.
It balances it out really well.
Yeah, you're in the studio, you're in the daily life when they're just like, singing along, making things up, and it's great. Like there's a few moments where they show you the moment that it went from just being like experimental and trying to figure it out to, okay, this is how it should sound, and becomes the song that we all know. Those were some of my favorite moments.
Same here. Yeah. And again, you kind of got to be a fan already to really love those moments, Yeah. But if this makes new fans, then fuck yeah, more power to it,
One thing I do want to throw out, one last plug for anyone who really wants to listen to some really good Bob Marley. I recommend the album called Talking Blues, because it's an interview session where he's interviewed and he's telling his life story. And it's also a jam session in front of an audience where they're playing all these songs, and the way that they splice it, it's interview, jam, and it gives this whole new dimension. It basically tells the life of Bob in his words and in his music in this one jam session they did, and they recorded it, and it's available, called Talking Blues. If you really want to learn a lot about the guy, listen to that.
And if you are interested in buying some great Bob Marley and the Wailers vinyl, and you want to hear him live, which I would almost say is superior to studio recordings.
Yeah.
This is one of his last stops on his last tour. is 1980 in Germany. It's a 2-disc vinyl set called Bob Marley and the Wailers, Germany 1980. It's I got remastered 180 grams record. It sounds like a fucking studio album, and it's incredible. So you got 2 recommendations from me and Babak there. Like yeah, just a great man. Great, great story, great movie, great music. One love, man.
One love. Every
I and
little
I, Rastafari.
respect. Big up, Bob Nestor, the Honorable Robert Nestor Marley.
I know we sound like assholes when we're doing that because we're just a couple.
It's from love. It's from love.
Thanks everybody for listening to this podcast review of Bob Marley One Love. Go see it in a theater today. It's out. It's doing well. It's worth your watch. This is Babak and Ben from Cinema Gold. Babak, want to do the honors?
We drink your cinema.